everybody. Hello. My name's Shay, and I'm our Native Arts Coordinator here at Idyllwild Arts. First of all, I'd like to thank Daniel Gray for putting this all together. It's a pop-up program. We found out that Ed was in the area, and we thought it was just an amazing opportunity to have him come out here and share with you all this evening. The thing that's even more amazing than just him being here is that this is a continuance of a legacy that has spanned over 50 years now. His grandfather, Fred Kabotie, who was probably one of America's premier artists, as well as his father, were both summer faculty here at Idyllwild Arts. And so to have Ed here to continue that beautiful legacy at Idyllwild Arts is something really, truly gives me goosebumps to think about it. So it's quality being here. Now, Fred Kabotie was a very famous artist, faculty here, and his father too. Ed Kabotie continues that legacy with his artwork in visual arts and music. And the program tonight is called Alternative History of America. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. 사랑해 여기 나의 사랑해 남하라의 하늘이 롤롤만 예수니 알라해
Biagi di nabi kemaing waping amumu kwari ari kelang tua ka o winga ari sumopa bi wari biagi di kuidovi sidovi me in ko o in gia in ta in biagi di. My name is Kabotie and I'm from the Hopi village of Sumopavi and also the Tewa village of Kapo Owinge, aka Santa Clara Pueblo. And it's a blessing to be here with you guys, man. I'm really excited to be here. I made it out to this campus once or twice back in the 70s when I was a kid growing up. And so I've also had the privilege of speaking here before as a lecturer, guest lecturer, and also had the privilege of working as an assistant to my dad in one of the Hopi silversmith workshops, and then the following year helping Griselda and Lawrence Sufke in the class. And at any rate, so it's a real honor to me also to be here. I went to the bathroom across the street. And when I went over there, I noticed on my left-hand side there's a piece that my dad did when he was here. I can't remember the title, but it's something having to do with Awatovi songs. But I recognize the piece, something that he did when I was a kid. Anyway, what I'd like to talk to you tonight about is an alternative history of America. Recently, a couple weeks ago, we had Columbus Day, or we celebrated Columbus Day, or as in Flagstaff now, they celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. I feel like a lot of our recollections, or maybe the things that are passed on to us as United States history, it really has a whole lot of holes in it, For instance, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And Exit wrote a song that said, in 1492, you sailed the ocean blue and we discovered you. But one of the strange things is like, in the textbook that I had in high school, it went from 1492 and the next page was about Jamestown and Plymouth, 1607 and 1621. That's 115 years later after Columbus landed. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot different. So I'd like to share with you a number of things tonight. I'd like to share with you the first documented war for religious freedom on United States soil, which was 100 years before the American Revolution. I'd also like to talk to you a little bit about the first European colonies in what we call the United States today, which was actually 16th century, as opposed to Jamestown and Plymouth, which are 17th century settlements. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about maybe the first concentration camp in United States history, the first peaceful protest in United States history. And again, this is going to be a little bit of an alternative history of America, a little bit different. I like to call it maybe even an alternative history of America. Anyway, we're going to be looking at artwork from my father and my grandfather and myself. And that's so exciting too, to be sharing it here at Idyllwild Arts. This is a piece that I recently did. I call this True American. And this piece, you can see, is fashioned in the design of an American flag with a coyote in the middle of it. I like coyotes myself. My band's called the Yotes. That's short for coyotes, because we're howling for the people and lands of the Colorado Plateau. We're howling about the fact that there's 500 open pit uranium mines that still exist on Navajo Nation since the Cold War. We're howling about the fact that the world's largest strip mining, listen to this, the world's largest strip mining operation is on the joint use lands of Navajo and Hopi, the Black Mesa Mine, which just hauled out its last load of coal a few weeks ago. We're howling about the fact that the only existing uranium mill, commercial uranium mill in the entire United States of America is threatening the water systems of the Ute Mountain Ute Nation. We're howling about the fact that in Hopi, on my reservation, if you have running water, if you have it, 2/3 of the population can't drink what comes out of the faucet because of arsenic contamination. We're howling about the fact that even though every single Native American tribe in the state of Arizona has outlawed uranium mining on their lands today, there still exists one uranium mine, and that's the Grand Canyon mine, and that's threatening the water systems of the Havasupai Nation. So the situations that I'm talking about are all on the sacred landscape known to the scientists and the geologists and basically everybody else as the Colorado Plateau. It's represented by that blue square image, with the star in the middle of it. In our conception in Hopi, we actually live in the center of the universe, right there, smack dab in the middle of that star. And we're surrounded by 4 mountains. Similar to the Navajo's recognition of similar mountains, Mount Taylor in New Mexico, Navajo Mountain at the border of Utah and Arizona, the San Francisco Peaks in Flagstaff, and also Mount Hesperus and Mount Blanca in Colorado. We're surrounded by these 4 mountain systems, and that marks this sacred landscape that we call the Colorado Plateau. Colorado Plateau because the color red is all over it. It has the most number of national parks per square mile than anywhere in the world. Arches National Park, Zion National Park, Grand Canyon National Park. And yet it's one of the most exploited lands for uranium, water, oil, and coal. I've got 7 stripes on this star. Those 7 stripes represent the heritage of my people. My father is Hopi, my mother is Tewa. Those are both Puebloan people of the ancient Colorado Plateau. The scientists will tell you if you go out and visit sites, ancient sites on the Colorado Plateau, they'll tell you you're visiting ruins. Those are not ruins to our people, those are the footsteps of our fathers, the footsteps of our mothers. And that's the way we refer to them as, our footsteps. But the ancient footsteps of our people include 7 different language groups. The Hopi, the Kiris, the Tiwa, the Tewa, the Towa, the Zuni, and a group that no longer exists among us, the Piro. They used to be south of Albuquerque, but no longer. So I'm going to be telling a history that is largely about my people. It is going to be even probably a little more specifically about my father's people. How do I do this? Okay, cool. This is our great heroine in Southwest cultures, Kukyang Su'uti, the Spider Woman. When we came into this world, we came from an underworld. And when we came into this world, we were blinded by the light because we had been below where there's limited light. My father used to say, you can be blinded by darkness, but you can also be blinded by the light, and that was the situation. I think Manfred Mann said that somewhere too. Anyway, so we couldn't see, and we heard a little voice that said, put your hands over your eyes and remove them, and when we did that, we could see kind of light. Do it again, we did it again, we could see blurry shapes. She said, put your hands over your eyes, do it again, we did it again, and it's probably like the way I see without my glasses. And she said, put your hands over your eyes one more time, and kapow, boom, everything came in focus. Anyway, so this is representative of a common theme among Southwestern people, that we emerged into this world. Just like as a baby, you were born into this world, a similar concept, the way we view the human race. And we believe that we all emerged together as a people. If you ask a modern scientist, I think most of the modern scientists have the theory or espouse the theory that human life begins somewhere on the continent of Africa. If you ask somebody who is indoctrinated and invested in their belief in the Judeo-Christian story, they might tell you that human life begins in the Garden of Eden. When I went to the Santa Fe Indian School, and by the way, I'm 3rd generation boarding school. My grandfather was the first in our family to be shipped off to boarding school. My father was also sent out, and I was the 3rd. I graduated from the same boarding school as my grandfather. But when I was in boarding school, getting my education, they talked to us about a lot of subjects. Science was the one I just couldn't wrap my head around. Some of it I could. For instance, the scientific theory. You know, you come up with a crazy idea about what you think about how something works. You create experiments, hopefully blowing up something. You know what I mean? About to disprove or prove your theory. And you document that information, and then, you know, you have a proof of your theory as true or a disproof, or maybe you got to do a little more research. I could understand that. That made a whole lot of sense to me, the scientific theory. I remember that. Then, I remember the very next thing that they started talking about was that the world was billions and billions of years old and started with the big old giant crash, and I'm going like, now wait a minute, bro. You just told me science was observation, and I know you weren't there. You know what I mean? So, what I learned is that people have theories, and these theories are proven by various things. But listen, at its best, that's still a theory, because none of us were there. It might be a very good theory, but none of us were there. So when our elders in Hopi tell us that human life begins near the confluence of the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River, that human life began with the emergence of all people into this world there in the Grand Canyon. All different colors of people, all different races. We emerge from that original womb kiva there. That's also a theory that we have. We can't really prove that theory. But I want to say this, that I do believe this. The way you believe you came into this world really affects the way that you conduct your life in this world. And to me, that's something that all of us should think about a little bit, because I feel like the way our world is moving, it's moving away from conscious thought. It's moving away from thinking with your heart and thinking with compassion. Anyway, when we emerged there, we went on our migrations. You can see various animals in this painting from my father. He's showing the various clanships, the various identities we took on. When I introduced myself to you, I said, "Omiyagindi," with respect to you. "Ohuaping Angomu," my name is Cloud Mountain. Kwari arik elang o kap o winge ari komope o winge iwiri. I'm of the winter people, and I'm a badger in my clanship. I come from the village of Reed Springs and the village of Wild Roses. Anyway, these are identities that we took upon ourselves as we went through our migrations. We believe all people did this. All races did this. They all went on their quest for knowledge, for spiritual truth, for intellectual truth. Our focus and our classroom was on the sacred landscape of this giant mesa that we call the Colorado Plateau. So the Colorado Plateau is what you drive up onto when you drive up north of Phoenix. You drive onto a giant mesa. And this giant mesa extends all the way from the north of Phoenix, all the way about 2/3 of the state of Utah. It's called the Colorado Plateau, but ironically, it contains actually just a tiny sliver of western Colorado and a little bit of northwest New Mexico. Anyway, this is, as somebody pointed out earlier, an aerial view of Chaco Canyon, one of these spectacular places, ancient sites of our people, established maybe 800 to 1,000 years, 1,200 to 1,000 years ago. This is Chaco Canyon, Pueblo Bonito of Chaco Canyon, really beautiful site. But these are the places that we refer to as our footsteps. At the watchtower at the Grand Canyon, my grandfather painted a picture there of the first guy in our memory to go down the Grand Canyon. And he went all the way down the river in that little log on the right side, all the way down into Mexico. Now back then, today the Colorado River is considered to be our continent's most endangered river. Its waters have been chopped up and bought and sold between states and countries, and it no longer makes its way home out here to the Gulf of California, to the Sea of Cortez, and on out to the Pacific Ocean. But back then it did. He went all the way from the border of Utah and Arizona, following that river all the way out to the Gulf of California. And then when he got out, he fell in love with the young lady from Mexico, and he brought her home. We're matrilineal people where we come from. You know, we don't become what our father is, we become what our mother is. And his people, or her people rather, the young lady that he fell in love with from Mexico, her people had knowledge of how to call moisture through their relationship with the rattlesnake. Every other year in Hopi to this day, it's been going on for about 1,000 years in our area. Every other year they have this ceremony. People from the outside today are restricted from coming to visit it. It used to be open to the public, but it seemed like the general public really didn't understand what was taking place, looked at it more of a circus rather than a prayerful ceremony for the world. So anyway, this is an example of how we attain our identities as ancient people and how we carry that identity. This is the story of the Snake Clan. Like I said, I'm of the Badger Clan, a different clanship. We have our own history. This here, I'm not sure how this particular slide got here. I think I kind of messed up in my sequence. Actually, no. This particular slide is here to give an example or maybe to celebrate Hopi's relationship to reggae music. Where I come from, man, we love reggae music. You know the crazy thing? Most of Bob Marley's performing sons have played on our little reservation. Damian Marley, Kamani Marley, Stephen Marley. Damian, yeah, Hunter. Oh yeah, Damian for sure, right? I don't know where Hunter's at. But Hunter can give us a lot of this history, our bass player. Jamaican artists actually literally seek oftentimes to play on our little reservation. A couple years ago, Morgan Heritage, a family band from Jamaica, they won the Grammy for Best Reggae Album that particular year. When they were coming through Arizona, their management contacted us because they said, hey, we know you guys have the connection to Hopi. We're not going to make it to Hopi this year. Could you guys come out and open for us? That way we have, Hopi in the building. So there's a lot of love. We call it an island-to-island relationship. In Hopi, we're a reservation totally enclosed by another reservation, the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation, the largest reservation in the world. Hopi is the donut hole. We're the terror within. That's what we are. We're a reservation inside of another reservation. If you can imagine, so much of the Navajo Nation is considered to be remote. We're a reservation inside of another reservation, totally 100% landlocked. So we have an island-to-island relationship with Jamaica. They're surrounded by water. We're surrounded by the Navajo Nation. Anyway, I put this here intentionally because in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And within 100 years of Columbus's landing, virtually the entire Caribbean island Native American population was wiped out. They died from disease, they died from war, and they died from suicide because they would rather kill themselves and even kill their own children than to give themselves over to the life of slavery that they were seeing. So within 100 years, the Native American population of the Caribbean islands wiped out. They had to be replaced by another slave population, so the African slave was imported. When you think of the island of Jamaica today, you don't think of people of Native American descent. And when you think of the island of Cuba, you don't think of people of Native American descent. Reggae music is the music of a people that have been oppressed for centuries by the greater culture. We kind of relate to that. Reggae music is the music of a cry for social justice. Not necessarily for peace, Peter Tosh said, but for equal rights and justice. There really can't be peace if you don't treat people, in a similar way, as equals. So this is celebrating that, but also inserted here to remind us of that history. What took place in America? We leave out from our textbooks the genocide of the Caribbean islands. We leave out from our textbooks the conquest of Mexico, the pillaging of South America, the first European settlement in the United States, which is actually 68 years before Jamestown, 1539, St. Augustine, Florida, and the second European settlement in the United States, which is San Gabriel, New Mexico, about 10 miles from the village that I grew up in, my mother's village, Kapolowinga. 10 miles away is San Gabriel, New Mexico. Santa Fe is considered to be our continent's longest, or our country's rather, longest continually used capital city, being established in 1610. I'm trying to point out that when it comes to this area mass that we call the United States of America, Jamestown and Plymouth are not first contact. The East Coast is not first contact. We're first contact in the Southwest. If you visit the Grand Canyon, they'll tell you the first European to look at the Grand Canyon was in the year 1540. That's 67 years before Jamestown. And if you think about what was taking place in Spain in 1540, that was the execution of anything non-Catholic was either killed or sent out of the country. That was 100% Inquisition. And that's basically what was brought to us. Santa Fe is considered a place of cultural harmony, a place that people like to visit to celebrate the cultural harmony of the European and the Native American. Santa Fe is a place of bloodshed. Santa Fe wasn't established in 1610. Santa Fe and San Gabriel, New Mexico, the second European settlement in the United States, and like many other European settlements at that time, were established on pre-existing Native American communities. Santa Fe I know as Oge Oinge, the Water Place Village, and was established around 1300 and was claimed by Spain in 1610. Santa Fe Plaza is a place of public execution. Santa Fe Plaza is a place that our people shed their blood, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but over and over and over and over and over again in its history. In 1675, there was a public hanging on Santa Fe Plaza of some of our medicine men. This is something that often took place in Santa Fe. There was also a man who was whipped rather than killed because his crimes were not considered as severe. He relocated himself to the most northern of the Pueblo villages, which is Taos Pueblo, New Mexico. And there he received instructions from Oseyemo about how we would overthrow our oppressors. He sent runners with knotted cords throughout every village in northern New Mexico, northern Arizona. Runners because it was illegal under Spanish rule for a Native American to own a horse at that time. Runners, every village from Taos to Albuquerque, every village from Albuquerque to Acoma, every village from Acoma to the state line of Arizona and New Mexico to Zuni, the Zuni villages, and then across the state line into Arizona to the most western of the Puebloan villages at that time, which was a Hopi village known as Ojaive, which is also considered to be the oldest continuously inhabited community in all of North America, being established about the year 1000. They gave to all the leaders instructions to untie a knot in the cord at the dawning of each day. Every knot represented a day. So when the last knot was untied, that would be the signal for all of the villages simultaneously throughout northern New Mexico, northern Arizona to revolt. July the 4th is considered by many to be Independence Day, our war for religious freedom, and the first documented war for religious freedom in the history of this country was the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. We fought this war before there was even a Washington, D.C. in existence, 100 years before the American Revolution. It was about a 10-day war, and after about 10 days of August 20th, we celebrate August 10th. That's the day that we went to war with Spain. After about a 10-day siege of Santa Fe, Spain surrendered, and we allowed them to retreat to the El Paso area. We became, at that time, the only group of Native American people in all of written history to oust an established European colony from our homeland. We've never been relocated from our homes. We're living in the exact same places that we were at the time of contact. The same houses, the same villages, you know. Anyway. All right. I don't know if you can see the year, but the year down there in the corner, it's a signature by my grandfather, Fred Kabotie, and the year is 1976. In 1976, my grandfather was invited to create a piece to celebrate the 200-year bicentennial birthday of America. So my grandfather said, I think I can do that. So my grandfather went 100 years before to the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, and this is a scene that took place in our villages. You could see that the missionary is particularly targeted because of their abuses towards our women and our children at that time. The Spanish returned in 1692 and retook New Mexico. They claimed Arizona and established one of the biggest missions on our reservation out in Hopi. In the year 1700, the men from our other villages came upon that village of Owatawee and totally obliterated it. We killed our own men, all of them. Every man from that village, no one was spared. Obviously the missionaries, and to our shame, some of the women and children as well. You can see that everybody's faces are gray, representing that we've all been kind of made sick by what's taking place. We went back to our way of life for the next 200 years. Now watch this. We're first contact people, but we're also last contact people, because after that village was destroyed, we were virtually left without European presence for the next 200 years until the English version of the United States of America catches up with us. 200 years later, in the Wild Wild West, what was called back then the Wild Wild West. This is a picture showing the last, or the aftermath of the last Indian War, what they call the Battle of Wounded Knee. In the Battle of Wounded Knee, a camp was surrounded and disarmed and then fired upon. These were refugees from the first peaceful protest in United States history. In the year 1890, Sitting Bull invited the ghost dance from Nevada, which originated in Nevada. It was a dance to honor the ancestors of past Native American people that had been died from sickness, from war, over the last couple centuries. It was a dance where dancers, participants, had to pledge pacifism and also had to pledge abstinence from alcohol. No war, no alcohol. Sitting Bull in 1890 invited this dance to Standing Rock. Because of the swell of population, the government panicked and sent in soldiers. They arrested Sitting Bull and simultaneously executed him. The people fled into the winter snows. This took place in December of 1890. And it was at Wounded Knee that they were surrounded and they were fired upon. The 47 survivors, 43 women and children, 4 men, were taken into a church. There's a Civil War physician on that far side. He's actually a surgeon from the Civil War. The Civil War was fought like a lot of bloody hand-to-hand things. He's a surgeon. He's seen some crazy things. He says, this is the first time I've ever seen women and children shot to pieces like that. I can't stand the sight of it. There's a little girl who's drinking water, and historically they said that she was motioning for water. They gave it to her, and it came right out of her throat because she'd been shot through the throat. The ironic thing about this scene is that that took place on December the 27th, 2 days after Christmas. So the Christmas greenery was still up there in the church where they were singing, as well as the banner that said, "Peace on earth, goodwill to men." It's after all of this, after the imprisonment of the Navajo in the first concentration camp in United States history in 1864 to 1868, after the first Thanksgiving, after the long walk of the Cherokee, or the long walk of the Navajo, and the Trail of Tears of the Cherokee, after the Battle of Little Bighorn, after the execution of Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, after all of that, the battle that we just talked about, now the government finally turns their attention to this forgotten group of people in northern Arizona, my people. The last decade of the 1800s, the government came to our people and said, you have to send your children to Pennsylvania, thousands of miles away, to be educated in the boarding school whose stated policy is kill the Indian, save the man. When our leaders refused, like anybody would refuse, what would you do if somebody came to you to take away your children? Said, I'm taking your kids, I'm taking them 1,000 miles away, I'm not going to tell you when I'm bringing them back, but when I bring them back, they'll be a whole lot better than they were because they'll be like me, they won't be like you anymore. You know. Our leaders adamantly refused, and they were arrested and shipped off to San Francisco to Alcatraz Island, where they were imprisoned there on Alcatraz Island. The following decade, in 1906, from the right, the fifth guy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, standing, the one that's standing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the right. That's my great-grandfather, Lolo Ma'yama. And this photo was taken in 1906 when he was arrested and imprisoned for refusing to send my grandfather to school. My grandfather ran away from school till he was 15. Then he was sent to the Santa Fe Indian School. My father was sent to Lawrence, Kansas. I graduated from the same boarding school as my grandfather. I'm the third generation in my family to actually have an English name, to have a last name, and to have the school experience. This early school experience, this was not my experience, but this early school experience was when children were being punished, taken away from their families at very young ages. Many of the children died from homesicknesses and other things, obviously. But it was during this time of upheaval that the United States required us to create constitutional governments, to usurp our leaders that had been in place for thousands of years, our own system of government that had been in place for thousands of years, and to adopt a tribal council. This was done according to the website of the Navajo Nation. In 1921, the Navajo Nation became a constitutional government in 1921 so that oil companies could have one place to focus on, to negotiate with for resources on their lands. As I mentioned, between the years of 1970 and 2005, the world's largest strip mining operation was in full swing, with coal being extracted from Black Mesa, joint use lands of Navajo and Hopi, and sent via a black pipeline, sucking up pristine water underground to send that coal 350 plus miles away to the Mojave Generating Station in Nevada, so that people in Southern California and throughout the state of Arizona and the excesses of the Las Vegas Strip could have clean electricity. Meanwhile, during those years, most of our people didn't have running water or electricity, and even to date, if you have running water in Hopi, 2/3 of the population, like I said, can't drink what comes out of a faucet because of arsenic contamination. But I think that's even a little bit better than what the Navajo struggle with the uranium contamination. We're actually living in a worldwide water crisis. People in larger cities don't feel the effects of it. But the Havasupai Nation, the Navajo Nation, the Hopi Nation, we live with it every single day of our lives. So, when I was a kid, they used to call me De'e. And De'e, it means little coyote. It's what it meant was that my blood's all mixed up. I'm a little bit of Tewa, I'm a little bit of Hopi, I'm a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know. So they were trying to make fun of me a little bit. Sticks and stones may break my bones, right? But names really scar me for life. I mean, it's kind of like that. I kind of carried this, kind of out of place feeling for a long time. And when I got older, it just got worse because one of the ceremonial clowns, the initiated medicine men of our community, he started calling me Posehua. And Posehua is the name of the coyote. Not a coyote, but the coyote. The coyote is a trickster hero in our mythology that shows us how to live. Maybe a better way to say it, shows us what not to do by doing it. Right? Does that make any sense? That's his function. He shows us what not to do by doing it. And so, in most of the stories, it starts off, Owe wehem bayo, nem posehua ginakawe, ne de. Way back at the beginning of nothingness, there was this coyote. And Posehua was his name. And usually the way the story ends is, and he died. That's it. He always gets himself in so much trouble, that's usually just where he ends up, you know. But he's got 1,000 lives, so it's okay. But the medicine man started calling me Posehua. What he was trying to say, he said, you're always in trouble. You're not really thinking, you know. So that one followed me around for a little bit. I got some trouble in Flagstaff a few years back. And it really brought me into focus with a lot of things in my life. A lot of really important messages came to me. One of those was, about my own spiritual center. That I had to hang on to that more than anything for my life. And the other thing was the lopsided justice in northern Arizona and all throughout the Colorado Plateau. During this situation, Hopi was paid 3.3% for the market value of coal, given $1.67 for every 326,000 gallons of water, 45 billion gallons of water, a supply that would have supplied our people for 200 years, 300 years. It's gone, and it's never coming back. Anyway, Coyote started to mean a whole lot more to me when I was going through some of these experiences. Because I realized that Coyote in our culture is not only a trickster, he's not only kind of a, always kind of doing a dumb thing and showing us what not to do by doing it, but sometimes he takes on a totally different role, a conscious role. Sometimes he is a holy man. Sometimes he is a medicine man that spreads healing. To me, when a person has been traumatized, they need to cry out. As far as Native American people, we've heard of one standing rock. But I'm trying to say by this presentation, there's 500 standing rocks in the hemispheres that we live in. There's another 20,000 throughout this globe, Every time we turn a faucet, every time we flick a switch, all of it affects people, And I think that it's really important that we begin to kind of not only think with our minds, but once again think with our hearts, with compassion, with spiritual understanding. Anyway, what it came down to with the Yodis is that I figured, I guess that's what I am. I'm a Yodi. And I said, now I'm going to be howling for the people and lands of the Colorado Plateau. So that's what we're doing. The Yodis right here, this band, that's what we do. We howl for the people and lands of the Colorado Plateau. Anyway, I'm going to get these guys up to play another song for you to kind of conclude our presentation. You guys ready?
In 1988, right around big MTV days, when they still showed videos, music videos on MTV, there was this guy named Bobby McFerrin, and he wrote a song called Don't Worry, Be Happy. Out in Hopi, our people are very creative and very, very creative, very artistic. Within probably maybe a couple months after I had seen that t-shirt, I'm sorry, I just gave away my story. Within a couple months after that song came out, they started circulating a t-shirt with like a rain cloud with lightning coming out of it and rain coming down. And on the top of that cloud it said, "Don't worry." And underneath it said, "Be Hopi." It took about 20 years to come around to rewriting the song, but finally I said, we should rewrite that tune. So we're going to play you a song, Don't Worry, Be Hopi. And really this is just a little bit of a wrap-up of everything we talked about tonight. The first verse is going to talk about our mythic history, second verse about our historic conflict with Spain, and then we'll bring it all full circle on the last. Check it out. the beginning of time, we came into this land to leave our strife behind. Follow my son's plan, he said. Don't worry, be over. Tried to change our ways, but we were doing fine. We said, nah, nah, don't worry, we'll just be over. 1680 we kicked the Católicos out. I know what the Pizarro proved there was no doubt, yeah. Don't worry, be over. This is Andrew Baker on the drums tonight. Hunter Eagle Man Red Day from the Navajo Nation and Dakota Sioux people. Mr. Alec Tippett on lead guitar. So a lot of times when I'm trying to get to Hopi from Flagstaff, where the band is based in, a lot of times I don't have a ride, you know what I mean? It's easy to hitchhike out of Hopi, everybody sees you, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh yeah, that's that guy, man, pick him up. On the way back, I don't know what, man, everybody's like focused on getting home, I don't know, nobody picks me up on the way back, you know what I mean? So if I don't catch the shuttle, man, I gotta call the Koi Wolf. I call this guy the Koi Wolf because we're called the Yotes, right? Short for coyotes, 3 little Yotes. That guy over there, he eats a little bit more than we do, you know what I mean? So we refer to him as the Koi Wolf, lovingly. Half coyote, half wolf, the Koi Wolf. It's actually a thing, yeah. You can Google it, it's a thing, yeah. Especially in the Northeast. Anyway, when he cruises me out, when you're cruising out to Hopi, you get to about Loop, Arizona, still on the Navajo Nation. Go north of that to what we call K-Town, Kekotsmove. And then about right when you're passing into the line of the Hopi Reservation, man, all of my cell phone coverage just goes kaput, you know what I mean? And all of my worries and all of my cares go out the window with it. It feels like this. Wrap-up of our history. This next verse brings everything full circle. Still today we have our trouble. The United States, they tried to bust our bubble. They say, don't worry, be hoping. Peabody Coal has been full of lies. They say they don't know why our springs run dry. They said just stay in your corner of northern Arizona and be hoping. And there's the bears, here's this Grand Canyon mine, the desecration of our sites and shrines. As to the keep on telling us, don't worry, be hoping. Itang pasinang kahopit, don't worry, just be hoping. Don't worry about a thing now, because every little thing is gonna be alright. Makahit mo ang totaday o mahopay. To hang out with us. We do have some t-shirts and CDs, and we'd be happy to answer a question or two if you like, or play you guys another song. But anyway, thank you guys once again for hanging out.
Thank you guys. Stick around, dance or something. They're going to do one more song. I also wanted to make mention that we're thanking Art and Society, because this is a partnership with Art and Society, Student Services, and Native Art Expansion. Right?
This is an original tune. Yeah. This is a song in love for the ladies. Check this one out on YouTube from the Yodis. Tune called Sunflower. She got a smile, a sweet, soft look, and a touch of a loving kick. She got a wisdom in the look, and a long, dark, flowing hair. Her eyes dance with laughter, her voice is a seasoned song. I follow her ever after, until I make my way to the stars of her shade. I'm longing for your love. Sunflower good, yeah. What's your temptation of pollution? She wants to view every day. Yeah, she heals me when I'm breaking, and whispers grace in her sweet way. My heart around her gets faster. Oh, voice is the seasoned sun. I'm longing for your love. Sunflower Blue. And a touch of a loving can, woman can. She got a wisdom in the in a long dark flowing hair. I dance with laughter. Oh, it's the season's on. I'll follow forever after until I make my way to the stars. But she's so good. I'm looking for your love. So good, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know we love that.